Well, officially welcome. Thank you so much for joining our webinar tonight. Julian and I are really excited. Looks like we've got a really great turnout. For anyone I haven't met before, my name is Penny Vandenhurk. I run my own company here in Sydney as a buyer's agency. Prior to becoming a buyer's agent, I worked as a property lawyer and also in home loan banking with two of Australia's largest financial services companies. I am incredibly passionate about helping home buyers, and all up have been helping people in Sydney for about 15 years now to buy property. And Julian and I first crossed paths a couple of years ago, and we both really share a passion for helping first home buyers navigate what can be quite a complex process. So we're very excited tonight to share with you lots of tips and tricks to help you out. And Julian, I'll pass over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Penny. I'm definitely excited about demystifying the home buying process for everyone, so you can understand, how to really start building wealth in the long run. My name is Julian. I operate from the Double Bay franchise of Loan Market. I look after everyone across Australia: first home buyers, lawyers, doctors, dentists, millionaires. We've been around for a long time. We win a lot of awards helping the people in our community. Similar to Penny, I've had a good mix of experience that will help you see things from various perspectives. Been doing home loans for the past 6 years, and the 5 years prior to that, I've been a real estate agent in both residential and commercial sectors. And on a personal front, I've grown an affinity with fellow first home buyers, and it is now my passion to help others who would like to take their first step towards home ownership. So back to you, Penny.
Awesome, thank you. So a little bit about what you can expect from us tonight and to take out of the webinar. So tonight is really all about practical advice, and we are going to be covering off where do you start when you're a first home buyer, how do you actually get to the finish line, what does it look like to actually buy your first property. We're going to talk you through some options that you might not understand or you might not even know that you have when you're a first home buyer. And we want to talk you through how you can feel financially empowered in buying your first home as well. Suggest, if you don't already, have a notepad and pen out, as we're not just going to be reading from the slides. And there is a chat function. Please feel free to put questions in the chat as we go, because we have set some time aside at the end to cover off any questions that come through. And often that's where there's lots of value as well. All right, well, let's jump in. So most people, when they decide that their time has come, exciting time has come to buy their first home, they start out by jumping onto real estate and domain, and they look at what is for sale. At some point, that then translates into giving up Saturdays and start house hunting. Now, there's nothing wrong with this approach, but it's actually far from optimal. And you're likely going to waste countless Saturdays. You'll probably have your pre-approval extended 2 or 3 times, and it's likely that you'll gain a dislike for real estate agents along the way. Potentially, you already find yourself in that position. And so tonight, I wanted to talk you through a bit of an approach that you can take that actually helps you set a course and stay on course. And that really looks at, how do you have a really clear strategy? How do you get yourself ready? And how do you actually execute on buying your first home? So let's start with strategy. So strategy is not, I'd like to buy a 2-bedroom apartment and I have $1 million to spend. You've jumped the gun. So take a step back. Strategy is actually thinking about, am I buying this property because I want to live in it, because it's an investment property? Potentially it's both. How long do you plan to own the property for? Are you using this property purchase purely as a stepping stone to upsize later on? Do you want to maintain your current lifestyle? If not, well, what parts of your current lifestyle are you willing to sacrifice in order to purchase? And what's your financial strategy look like comparing your cash flow from your current lifestyle to once you have a mortgage? Now, everyone has their very own unique strategy, but what's really important is that you're really clear on what your strategy actually is. And the other really key part is, if you're purchasing the property together with a partner, a friend, a family member, you all need to be on the same page about what that strategy is going in. Because if not, you'll actually waste a lot of time trying to find the perfect property, because something that's right for one of you won't be right for the other one because you have different strategies. Worst case, you do end up buying a property, you're not aligned on strategy, and you'll end up in a tricky situation down the track where one of you wants to sell the property sooner than the other, and you hit some hurdles there. So it's really important to make sure that everyone's on the same page at the outset. Okay, so how do you narrow down this strategy? So the majority of us, we buy property in Australia with a belief and a vision that we're going to make money on it. And there's 4 common strategies that I'm going to touch on in the context of how do you choose a property that's going to outperform in any market. It's highly likely that you will resonate with one of these strategies. So the first, strategy A, is you plan to live in the property and you plan to own it for less than 5 years. Now, property markets work in cycles, and owning a property for less than 5 years, you do not have long to try and make money, to try and outperform the market. So what's really important is that you look for a property to purchase where you can add real value. So I'll talk you through some examples. Look for a property where the kitchen and the bathroom were last renovated maybe 10 to 15 years ago, and you would be open to renovating them in the time that you own them, making them more modern. If you're looking to purchase a house, then look for something that maybe has a rear lane access where you could add parking, or you could add a garage or add a studio above a garage. Look for ways to add value there. Potentially another one is where you look for a roof space that it might be an existing attic, it might just be an existing roof space, but can you turn that into a study or a bedroom? And really importantly, if you're buying an apartment and you plan to own it for less than 5 years, do not buy an apartment that has structural defects or systemic issues. So if the building is riddled with waterproofing issues and needs to go through a major remediation project, you're going to really struggle to make your money back in 5 years. So the second strategy is option B here, which is you plan to live in the property and you plan to own it for more than 5 years. So to live in it for more than 5 years, you need to buy into a lifestyle that you love. My advice is don't buy a property where the one thing you hate about it, you can't change. So I'll give you some examples on this one. If a property doesn't have parking and you use your car every day, it's going to be hard to last more than 5 years because it's going to do your head in. But also think about if your lifestyle is going to change in the time you own this property. So an example, if you're planning to have children and you would therefore use your car on a much more regular basis and the property doesn't have parking, you're going to find that really challenging. Another example might be if the property faces onto a busy road or it's really noisy and the outdoor area is really noisy. If you hate that about the property, it's going to be quite hard for you to overcome that because there's nothing you can ever do to change that. So you're just not going to want to live there for more than 5 years. Strategy C is a common one that first home buyers have, and this is where you plan to live in the property and then you plan to turn it into an investment. Now, this is a really tough one to find the perfect home to live in and what we term a really great investment. It's going to be a long-term play, and so you may find that you need to financially stretch yourself now to achieve a much better long-term result. Really, the key thing here is to consider a location that is right for your lifestyle, but also a lifestyle that's attractive to tenants. So tenants often look for proximity to public transport and a ratio of bathrooms to the number of people that can occupy the home. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind there. The fourth and final one is if you're looking to buy just an investment property, and often this is termed rent vesting with first home buyers. So my advice here is you need to have a primary strategy and be really clear on what that is. Is it capital growth that's more important to you, or is it cash flow? And one of those should rank above the other. If you're going after a capital growth strategy, which is you want the property to make as much money as possible in the long term, you should actually steer yourself towards a larger property and think about land size or property size. If cash flow is your primary driver, then actually steer yourself towards a higher ratio of bathrooms to bedrooms and a property with really low maintenance costs. All right, so hopefully that's some food for thought about how you set your strategy. Now, the really important next step is once you have the bones of your strategy, it actually becomes really easy to determine, well, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, car parking, and in what location do I want to buy? But it's really important that it's actually realistic with what you can afford, which is where a lot of people waste 6 to 9 months in the property market. So it's time to get yourself prepared. Now, there's a really easy way to give your strategy a reality check. So on realestate.com.au, which I'm sure you're familiar with, there is a tab called Sold. And what I suggest you do is once you've defined your criteria for location, property type, bed, bath, parking, you enter that criteria into the Sold tab on Real Estate. You can choose a filter to then limit properties that have sold in the last 6 months. Now, at this point, you probably have a rough idea what your budget range is. You might know specifically and already have a pre-approval, but put in the budget that you've been working towards. Press search and see what results come up for what sold in your budget in the last 6 months that fitted your criteria. Look at how many properties come up, how many sold. Then also look through each property. Would you have bought any of those properties? If you wouldn't have bought any of them, well, why not? And regardless of whatever market we're in, my general feeling and advice to people is if you can't find 3 to 5 properties that sold in the last 6 months that you actually would have considered buying and fit within your budget, your strategy and your brief may not be realistic. And so the most common ways to help make your brief a little bit more realistic are to either increase your budget, expand your geographical scope, or lose a bedroom. That's the easiest way. So once you believe that you have a realistic strategy, it's also really important that you are surrounded by a team that share a common goal with you to help you buy a property. Now, getting this sorted up front is key because once you find a property you love, you don't have time to waste to sort this out. So firstly, you definitely need a solicitor or a conveyancer. They handle all the legal side of what you are buying. Never sign a contract of sale without having had a solicitor or a conveyancer who works for you review it. This is an absolute must-have. Even if the contract has cooling off, do not sign a contract until you've had legal advice about it. When you're looking for a solicitor or a conveyancer, ask them how long they take to turn around a contract review for you, because time is money when it comes to purchasing property. And if their standard time to review a contract is longer than 24 to 48 hours, then in inner city markets, especially in Sydney, that just won't cut it. You need someone to be able to do a same day or 1 business day turnaround time on a contract review. If you're looking at buying an apartment, also ask the solicitor or conveyancer, do they review strata reports? Because if not, and you've never bought an apartment before and you've never read a strata report, you're going to really struggle to understand what that report is telling you. Now, the second one is getting your finance in order. And this is a little bit chicken and egg because your strategy needs to align with what you can afford. So it is good to actually engage a mortgage broker at the very start of your process. And once you're really defining yourself as I am ready to go now, then you need to be at the point of you have a pre-approval in place and it's active and valid and aligns with your strategy. One of the questions I get asked all the time is, should I go with a broker or should I go direct to bank? And the answer could not be more clear cut. Mortgage brokers work across multiple banks. They have way more leverage to get you the best deal going around than if you can go direct to the bank. So I'm a huge supporter and advocate of anyone who needs a mortgage working with a really great broker. So you found a lawyer or a conveyancer and you've got your pre-approval. With your pre-approval, it's a great strategy is to understand what your comfort level is to spend based on the repayments and what would be the absolute maximum dollar that you could spend on a property if you had to, if you absolutely loved it. Now, the other thing is that the majority of properties in Sydney are actually purchased without a cooling off period, which is similar to if you go to auction. And you won't have the benefit of signing a contract that's subject to finance. If you're buying in a market like Sydney, it's actually critical that you work with a broker who understands the market and understands how that works in Sydney, because otherwise you'll find yourself held back all the time when you need to put in offers subject to finance, and you'll miss out on properties because other people are ready to go. Now, the third person you might want on your team is a buyer's agent, which is what I do. I work with a lot of first home buyers, and there's two really key ways a buyer's agent can help you. The first is speed and time to buy. So this is what I do 24/7. It's not just my Saturday part-time job. I take your brief, I proactively shop it around the agents that cover the area you're looking at, and it's likely we would buy in 4 to 6 weeks. Now, if time's important to you and you want access to more opportunities than what's just online, and you want access to opportunities before they hit the internet, then it might be worth exploring if a buyer's agent can help you. The second key way that I help people is in money. So I negotiate with real estate agents daily. I know what their tricks are, how to work out if there's actually another buyer or if it's just them bluffing, and how to work out what the true value of that property is in the current market, so to ensure that you're buying at the lowest possible price. If you're not confident negotiating with a real estate agent, then I would highly recommend that you speak to a buyer's agent who's local to the area that you're looking to buy. All right, so now we get to the fun part where you've got your strategy, you know what you want to buy, you know why you want to buy it, you've got your team in place and you're ready to go. So if you've decided to hire a buyer's agent, then you can sit back, relax, and make whatever social plans you like for a Saturday, because generally I look at 2 to 3 properties for people and then we're buying. However, you might have decided not to use a buyer's agent. And so I wanted to talk you through some tips on what I would suggest you do next. So the first one is pick up the phone. Now, remember those 3 to 5 properties that sold in the last 6 months that you think you would have bought or could have bought, you would have been open to buying them. Call the real estate agent who sold them. Hi, Mr. or Mrs. Real Estate Agent. I saw that you sold 4th Smith Street a few weeks ago. I've just got my pre-approval. I would love to buy something similar. Do you have anything? Firstly, this tells the real estate agent you're serious and you're qualified because you've got your finance sorted. Secondly, it gives them a really clear and specific view over what you're looking for. So I would highly recommend that you pick up the phone and do that. Now, price guides is something that a lot of first home buyers struggle with. A price guide on a property does not tell you what the property will sell for. The only thing it tells you is the absolute lowest end of the scale for where the agent has set the vendor's expectations. Okay, the vendor does not plan to sell for that price. They don't want to sell for that price. They plan to sell for more than that. If you can mentally just accept that price guides can be misleading, you will find it much easier to get through the process of buying your first home. Now, often agents will ask you, what's your budget? And that's a really valid question because they don't want to show you properties that you can't afford. They're not there to waste your time. My suggestion on how to answer that is to give real estate agents a range, 10 to 15%, that sits just under what your absolute maximum is. So if your comfort level is 1.1 million, but your absolute maximum is 1,150,000, then my suggestion would be to say to that agent, I'm working within a budget of 1 to 1.1, subject to the specific property. This is my criteria. Okay, so you haven't revealed your absolute maximum, but you need to be honest about what your comfort level is. Next piece of advice is don't lie to real estate agents. Now, white lies are okay, but if you're interested in a property, be honest with the real estate agent. If you go to see it on the Saturday, they will call you on the Monday. If you liked the property, answer the phone and tell them, yeah, I did really like it. I'm going to come see it again. I'm going to come through with my partner or my mum. I'm sending can you send me the contract? I'm going to get it to a conveyancer to look over. If you don't answer the phone, or if you lie to the agent about your interest, the property may very well go on to sell to someone else, and the agent will never call you back. Even if the property is listed for auction, make sure the agent knows that you're interested in it. Now, off-market properties is a term used very loosely in real estate. So be really careful of agents trying to flog off-market properties to you. And what I mean is probably half the off-market properties that cross my desk are where vendors have really unrealistic price expectations, or there's something significantly off about the property. Maybe it's next door to a site that's just had a development application approved to build a massive multi-story unit block, or the owner wants, 300 grand more than the property next door that sold that was pretty similar 3 months ago. So be really careful of agents trying to flog you off market opportunities. There are some great ones, just be mindful. And then the last bit of advice on executing is mentally ready, because once you find the property you love, you will need to drop everything to be a project manager and get your deal over the line. So generally it's 2 to 7 days of pretty manic running around. You need to get your contract reviewed. You need to go back to your broker and make sure your finance all stacks up. Talk to them about making an offer unconditionally, or whether or not the bank will need to do a valuation. You need to do your due diligence, either building reports, pest reports, strata reports. Look at the infrastructure projects, the development applications going on around the property. You need to do your price research to know what the value of the property is. You need to negotiate with the agent, and you need to be in a position to sign a contract and pay the deposit. It's a pretty manic time, and just ask anyone you know who's bought a property, once you found the property, what did it look like the next couple of days? So if you work in a really busy job, you may find that challenging, and you may find that you've missed out on properties because other people were ready to go and you weren't. So I hope I haven't scared you off, because buying your first home should be a really exciting time, and you should feel empowered and informed about the decisions that you're making. If you ever feel pressured from a real estate agent, or that you're being asked to fly blind on a decision, then stop and speak to someone that you really trust. You can get caught up in the moment, and you don't want to make a decision that you regret. You are always welcome to give me a call if you find yourself in that situation. So with that, I'm going to hand over now to Julian, who's going to chat through the finance side of the equation, and then we are going to come back for questions. So please do feel free to keep adding questions into the chat.
Great, thank you, Penny. That was really insightful. It's now time for the exciting world of finance. So in the next